As of yesterday, there's a brand new Dasher rewards program if you didn't know. It's called the Overall Dasher Rating Pilot Program. And yes, it's taken over what I call V1, version 1 of Dasher rewards. You know, the one that required you to just accept at least 50% for silver, the first level of rewards, and then 70 at least. Some marketplaces, 80% AR for gold and platinum respectively. Now, DoorDash says the whole purpose of this overall, you get the point, this new program is because they've listened to Dashers and Dashers want more flexibility when driving. I kind of agree with that because if you've gone for Dasher rewards, and I have, you don't really feel like you have the control as an independent contractor to accept as freely, at least because you keep having to accept to maintain those minimum ARs. So first scenario, let's look kind of at what I feel a good chunk of Dashers are doing, and comment down below which one of these most relates to your dashing. Now, I'm going to consider kind of two different levels here. We can't go over every single scenario. The highest level, platinum, by the way, you no longer have to complete 100 deliveries in the last rolling 30 days. So I think, yes, there's some more flexibility there. I'm going to look at platinum to get the highest level of priority to high paying orders. And yes, all the other benefits that come with platinum. And then we'll look at, let's say, silver, just the first level here. So the first is Dasher. I'm calling the lowest acceptance rating because the way this program works, you get points based on how, I guess, good your metrics are, you know, your acceptance rate, completion rate, on time rate, which is new. It's different than the on time early rates, and then your customer rating. So example number one, if I got 0 points on my acceptance rating, I have, let's say, a 17% acceptance rate. Comment down below, what is your acceptance rate? I've had mine in single digits. I've had it in the 20s before starting Dasher rewards. I've had it at 50. I've had it at 70 plus, all over the place. But if I'm just cherry picking, going for a margin strategy, just trying to pick the highest margin offers, I'd say it's typically averaging maybe in the 20s. But if you're really cherry picking with 17%, you get 0 points. Now, everything else needs to be perfect. If you have the lowest acceptance rate, which DoorDash says the lowest threshold is 25% or lower, which is, as they call, very low. Do you think a 23, 4, 5% AR is still very low? But if you want platinum, everything else needs to be perfect. You can do it. You can get the highest tier here, but if I get 0 points, I need at least 70 points for platinum. I have perfect completion rate. I have a very high, like the highest tier of my customer rating, and I have a perfect on-time rate. So if everything else needs to be perfect, look at the completion rate, for example, here. You have really no leeway to cancel anything if at least you want platinum. Because look, based on DoorDash's point scale, at least at the time of filming this, if you even drop down the 99% completion rate, so 1% canceled, you have 33 points instead of 35 points. Fine. What if I have, let's say, scenario number 2, a moderate acceptance rate? Like, well, I'm used to having it at, let's say, 50% for the traditional silver status here. What would I get? And can I get platinum with a lower AR around 50? You can. Look at this. If I have an AR of 51%, which would only qualify me for silver, and yes, I think it's still pretty high here, I get 6 points. I still have a high completion rate. I can cancel 2% of the times now, 30 points. Customer rating, high but not perfect, 9 points. On-time rate, the highest level, 30 points. Then I can become a Platinum Dasher. 51% AR, it's still pretty high, but remember, you would need 50% just to get tier 1 silver. So if in your marketplace, that's typically what you do anyway, and you can maintain silver status, now you might have platinum status. What about those dashers though that for whatever reason always have a very high acceptance rating? Maybe your strategy is what I call the volume strategy. So I'm just accepting more, I'm taking possibly more orders per hour, And then I'm making, hopefully still the money that you want to make every hour. If you had an AR of 84%, now you have even more flexibility in other areas, because my AR, your acceptance rate is kind of the third most weighted, because we have completion rates and we have on-time rates. And then we have the acceptance rate with a maximum of 25 points. So consider that in comparison with the most weighted, the completion rate, a maximum of 35 points, and then the on-time rate in the number 2 spot of most weighted with 30 points. So if my completion rate is even a little lower here, 94%, I have a 6% cancellation now, 15 points. Customer rating at a high level here, 10 points. And on-time rates, another fully maxed out level here at 30 points. But still, my on-time rate isn't perfect. It's at 96%. That would get you platinum. All right, but that's platinum. That's the highest level. Not everyone is going to want to squeeze out like a low AR, but perfection everywhere to get platinum. Now, yes, you don't have to do the 100 deliveries in 30 days to get platinum, but let me look at a few examples of what I'm calling the realistic acceptance rate and other realistic examples. This one I'm calling the low realistic acceptance rating, and I think a good amount of Dashers are going to fall into this. So let me know if you fall into the low realistic acceptance rating. And I know not everything hinges on acceptance rating, especially like V1. But honestly, most of this starts with acceptance rating. You can't affect your completion rate without accepting something. You can't affect your customer rating without having a customer on an accepted request. So that's why we're hinging on mainly acceptance rating here. So if you had a very high cherry picking 0%, 11% AR, this is what would happen if everything else isn't perfect. Because remember, to get platinum, you can have 0 points. You can cherry pick, but everything else must be perfect, the highest tier to get platinum. But here, if I have a 4% cancellation rates or a 96% completion rate, I have 22 points. Customer rating, that's 5.0. That is at the highest tier. Honestly, I don't think you should really struggle maintaining at least the second highest or highest points level for customer rating. On-time rate. Now that's the new calculation based on the last 100 deliveries. Still allocating a 10% basically lateness here or a 90% on-time rate. Gets you 28 points. Now there is some estimations in this chart because the percentage to points chart that's on the right here, it's kind of small. I'll put it up on the screen here. Some of these aren't a direct one-to-one, and some of these, we're not quite sure where the cutoff is from a certain percent to a certain point count. So again, there is some estimations here, but having this would give you the minimum 60 points for silver status. Just one more example here, because I do want to go over the pros and cons of these strategies, how you might want to dash here, and some considerations of V2 over V1. Here is a moderate realistic acceptance rating. Let me know if this pertains to you. If you had a moderate 32% AR, it's not unfeasible. It's not as like crazy high maybe as that 51% we showed earlier. You only get 2 points here. But if your completion rate, 95%, high customer rating, and a high on-time rate, then you'll get the 60 points for silver. Here is the pros and cons, at least a few of them, of this overall Dasher ratings program. And I do hear from you, our team members, consider subscribing. All I do is help you make money in different side hustles, that you're doing delivery. Like, why does this have to be so complicated? It feels like an arcade. It feels like a game. Can't I just dash and dash as I want and not have to worry about this? Yes. It's kind of like the same thing as V1. If you want to completely ignore Dasher rewards, because this is what this is, Dasher rewards entirely, you can. But if you want potentially access to those higher paying offers, this is what you do. So I do think this will give you more flexibility. I don't have to do 100 deliveries in the last rolling 30 days. I don't have to hit 50 or 70 or 80% AR. There is more likelihood that you'll qualify as a Dasher on Dasher rewards. And it's easier to recover on some of this stuff because it's based on the last 100 deliveries, your on-time rates, your completion rate, your acceptance rate. But conversely, some of that is actually a con. So if more Dashers can qualify for Dasher rewards, that's probably the biggest initial objection that I heard. Well, it's going to dilute those that get access to high paying offers. And I'll tell you this, while that's true, this kind of almost, I described it as taking 2 steps back, but now 1 step forward, because 2018, 2019, whatever it was, we didn't have Dasher rewards. We didn't have Top Dasher. We didn't have priority access. Any of those metrics-based rewards programs. So in those earlier years, everyone was equally dispersed to get the highest paying offers. It was just more organic and spread out throughout the Dashers. Obviously, there still is an algorithm that determines which Dasher gets the offer there. I'd say to that, V1 Dasher rewards really kind of walled off those high paying orders just for a smaller percent of Dashers. But then arguably the majority of Dashers who aren't happy that they're not getting high paying offers, now more of them can qualify and be satisfied driving on DoorDash. Another con with the acceptance rate, yes, you don't need the 50, 70, or even 80, but there's really no points to even earn on acceptance rates until around 25% AR. And if you're hovering around single digits, teens, even low 20s, you're getting 0, maybe 1, 2 points based on your acceptance rate, which is never really going to even hit silver status. But I guess you wouldn't hit silver status anyway on V1 because you would need at least 50%. Another con, while you don't need a minimum 50% AR, let's say, you might need higher metrics in other places than you're used to. For instance, look at V1 on the completion rate. You need a minimum 90% completion rate, or you could cancel 10% of the time on silver status. Or gold, 95%, still high, 5% cancellation rate. But then go back to the completion rate on the overall Dasher ratings point system here. Now, a 95% completion rate, which is what you would need for platinum level, is bumped down to a moderate level points structure at 18 points. You're not rewarded with higher points on that completion rate until 96, 7, 8, and then very high 99 and 100% completion rate. So it kind of bumps up that completion rate where it was 90 or 95, which is arguably still pretty high there, to at least 95 to get more points. So overall, do I think it's a net positive? Yes. I like the removal of the 100 deliveries in 30 days. More Dashers are going to qualify. Will it dilute from those smaller percent that had the high paying on V1? Yes. But the whole point here, I think, is to have the flexibility to have higher Dasher satisfaction across a larger group of Dashers and ultimately allow more Dashers to make more money that might have been left out, let's say on V1. But what kind of Dasher are you? Which one of these scenarios most resonates? And how will you, if at all, how will you change your strategy on this V2 overall Dasher ratings pilot program?